Did you follow your passion or not? And maybe even a better way to say this is, what do you do when you are a very passionate person, right? About whatever it is that you're passionate about, but your business isn't about the thing you're passionate about, right? Or the job that you're working isn't about the thing that you're passionate about, right? Maybe you're really passionate about, I don't know, I have a client who is very passionate about women's health as an example, right? But let's say that the job you have or the business that you're building is more about, I don't know, copywriting. And you're probably thinking, well, why would anybody do that? Well, lots of people have multiple things that they're good at. And because if you're good at something, you could build a business around it, or you can get paid to do it from a job. So if you're good at it, it doesn't always feel misaligned. Okay. But that is a common way that we become misaligned, is because we are good at a thing, but we're not necessarily passionate about that thing. And there's a lot of conversation around, well, do you follow your passion or not? Because sometimes your passion will have you out here broke. Okay. The question becomes, do I follow it or no? Right. Or maybe your business or your job is actually about the thing that you're passionate about, but you personally aren't doing what you're passionate about. Right. So the thing I think about here is, if you're a business owner, a lot of business owners are solopreneurs. Even if they have a VA, they have some, small team, they're still very much a solopreneur in lots of ways. Not everyone, but many people. Right. And in this example, you could be building a business around the topic or the niche or the person or the problem that you're very passionate about, but because you are doing so many different things, maybe I'm spending most of my time marketing. Maybe I'm spending most of my time sales. Maybe I'm spending a lot of my time building funnels, whatever. And it's like, oh, the business is actually aligned, but I'm misaligned, right? Because I'm actually not doing the thing that I want to be doing. That's another example, right? In essence, what we're trying to get at in this particular episode, right? Oh, let me just add this other one. This is also common. More so, no, it's common in the job space and in the business space, is when you're not making money from your passion, right? I see this a lot with people who work in nonprofit world, right? They might be teachers, they might be therapists, they might be, all these different service-based businesses where they enjoy their work, but they're never going to become wealthy. And it's also true in the business world, right? Where, I see this a lot with like creatives or healers or people who are kind of practitioners, is what I would call them, where they're very passionate about their work, but the money isn't there. Right. So if you find yourself in any of those scenarios, this is your episode. Okay. The first thing I want to say is that it's 100% normal to struggle to balance making money and making a difference. Right. Any of those three scenarios that I gave, all of them are 100% normal. Okay. So that's number one. We don't need to shame ourselves or beat ourselves up or none of that. I always like to start with that fact. Secondarily, though, let me just gut punch you right after I rub your back. Okay. Normal does not mean good. Normal does not mean healthy. Normal does not mean aligned. Right. Doesn't mean any of those things. The truth is, living a quote unquote normal life will often have you unfulfilled and going to your grave with an uncompleted purpose or calling. Right. So, if I was going to put this in steps, the first thing I would say is, we need to accept I'm struggling with something that is normal, right? But I'm choosing not to stay here. That's our first step, because nothing else I say on this podcast will matter if we don't start there, right? If you live in America, it is normal for you to overeat. It does not mean we should continue to overeat. Now, I'm talking to you, not to me, because I'm not, okay, never mind. Neither here nor there. The point is, a lot of things are normal in our households, in our cultures, right? In the places that we live, the environments in which we live. But normal does not mean I should continue to do it. Okay. So that's your first step. Choose not to stay. The second thing I would say here is I also want you to realize that that feeling, right? Let's just call it an unsettling, right? It might be something bigger than that, it might be smaller than that, but I'm just gonna, since I don't know exactly what you're personally feeling, I can tell you what often happens, like the feeling that a lot of people have when they come to me, if this passion thing is the thing that they're struggling with, right? It's frustration. A lot of times it's exhaustion, right? It's feeling like there's something bigger or more available to them, all that kind of stuff. We're going to lump all of that into unsatisfied or unsettled. That feeling is inviting you to step into your next version. That is why it is here. It will not make you do it, but it is presenting you with an opportunity. And I'm going to encourage you to heed the call, right? Too many people ignore the small whispers and even the loud tears. And mostly it's because they don't know what to do about it, right? When we don't know how to solve a problem, right? The problem feels big to us. Like, let me use one of the scenarios that I gave at the beginning. I'm a really passionate person, right? But my job or my business isn't really about the thing that I'm passionate about. That can feel like a big problem. And when things feel big, we often avoid, right? It's like, man, that means I would have to quit my job. That would mean I would have to change my business. In this economy, that's what you want me to do? Right? That's what happens in our mind. All of these reasons why something can't happen or shouldn't happen or why we can't do it, etc. Right? And so our first few steps is just to recognize that we're in a place that we don't want to stay, right? And that we're being invited to something even bigger, more aligned, etc. Right? The key to your own breakthrough is to first decide, I'm not staying here, before you even know how to get out of it. If you need to lose 100 pounds, let's say you got some weight loss goals, decide first. If you realize you ain't got no money for retirement or you don't have enough money for retirement, decide first. Whatever it is that you recognize that is a challenge, a problem, a need, decide first, my friend. Okay. That's the first part of my TED Talk. Welcome. Okay. So let's say you've done those 2 steps. Okay. Then the bulk of your work after you have decided is clarity of desire, not clarity of direction. A lot of times we're trying to jump clarity of direction, right? Which is the next step, not clarity of desire comes first after you have decided. This is a concept that we talk about inside of our program, Helper School, right? And essentially, clarity of desire is the beginning of, and maybe even, I'm going to say the beginning of changing your energy, right? Again, if we're in a current place where we're frustrated, annoyed, sad, burnt out, whatever it is that we're feeling because, the thing we're doing is not really the thing we're passionate about in whatever way, those scenarios that I gave, then that feeling is not something we want to sit in. Clarity of desire is the beginning of taking aligned action, not just being busy, not just pivoting, but actually evolving, right? So we've done the first 2 steps, right? We've decided we are experiencing something normal, but we are not staying here. We are clear, right, that we're being invited to something bigger. Our next step is to put definition to your passion. That's what we mean when we say clarity of desire. A big part of why we get misaligned is because we're not clear enough. Okay. So in our program, we have a couple of different tracks. I'm only going to talk through 2 of them for the sake of this example. So one of them is myself, which is when people feel like they have lost themselves, either in their relationships, their business, their jobs, and they're trying to figure out, who am I? What do I want? Blah, 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 right? It's all focused on themselves. And then we have a different track that is mission, which is when people are, kind of impact driven and they need to get clear about their purpose, their calling, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. So when people are in the myself track, right, of our program, what does clarity of desire mean? All right. So an example would be, oh, this is a good one. Okay. So it's like a lot of times when people are in the myself track, we are often dealing with some kind of relationship thing, right? They might be deciding whether they should stay in a relationship. or they may be single and trying to figure out, you know, how to attract a better person, et cetera, et cetera. It could be anything, but a lot of times it is relationship related. And so when we say clarity of desire, it's like going from, oh, I want a Christian man. Girl, what does that mean? That's not clear, right? Again, a lot of this is about being clearer, right? It's about being clearer about what you desire. It is not just saying, oh, I want a Christian man. It's about being able to say, these are the characteristics of a Christian man that actually move the needle for me personally, right? That's an example of what it looks like to be clearer, but in the myself track, right? In our mission track, right? A good example is when people know they want to build a mission driven business, right? Or they know that they're a very mission driven person. But again, what the hell does that mean? Right? Like building a mission driven business, that's really broad, right? What kind of impact do you want to make? Right. So let me give you an example for uh, how we think about this specifically in the mission track. Right. So when we say get clearer, right, particularly clarity of desire, this is what we mean as in this particular track. Right. So we look at three levels, right? Social issues, systemic change, and specific problems. Because I want to give you a clear picture of what we mean when we say you need to be clearer. Because when you are clearer, number one, those feelings resolve itself, but you also make more aligned decisions. Okay. Right now, you're just not everyone, but many times you're just not clear enough about what you want. Okay. Right. So when someone comes to us about, building an impact business or building a mission driven business, right? And we say, okay, well, what does that mean? Oftentimes they're just not clear enough. So here's what we mean when we say, okay, well, what does that mean? What kind of mission driven business do you want to be? The first thing we're wondering and we're going to dig into is, well, what kind of social issue are you trying to change? Right? Let's say that, I don't know, one of the things that you were really passionate about was teen pregnancy. Okay, cool. That's not clear enough, just so we're clear. That's a great start, right? When we say social issue, we mean, okay, great. Teen pregnancy is your thing. Well, what are the symptoms? What are the causes? What are the correlations? Right? We would actually be digging into where you would be well versed on that social issue. Okay. And then we would go a level deeper and say, okay, great. We know the social issue. We have some, pretty good information about that. Then we need to know where we're going to create change. Where are we going to intervene, which we call system change, right? There are lots of ways that we can intervene related to teen pregnancy. We could go the school route. We could go hospitals. We could go to, I don't know, the Department of Children's Services. We could start with welfare programs. Like there's a laundry list of ways and places and timeframes that we could intervene, right? So that would be another level of clarity. Then we would go another level deeper and we would go into, okay, what is the specific problem that you are looking to solve in relation to teen pregnancy, right? And it's like, oh, is it a self-esteem problem? Is it, I don't know, parental support? Is it body image? Is it lack of purpose? Again, we could go down this line. That's what we mean by clarity of desire, is that there is a deep understanding of what you want, because that is how you make sure that you are a passionate person and the job and or the business, right? So let me give you another example of someone uh when it's not a business, right? So I have a client who is very impact driven. She is all about equity, right? She is a social justice kind of person, right? Because that's, mostly all I work with is impact driven kind of people, okay? Even when they're, husbands, wives, we may not always be talking about business, but we're always talking about them being a giver, a helper kind of person, right? And so, well, what does this look like uh when you have a job? Well, you need clarity of desire, right? You need to be clear, right? So this person that I'm thinking of works for a school system, right? She has had many positions, everything from, teachers to working in the administration building and, various roles. And one of the things that we had to work through is, well, what problem are you trying to solve? Right? It's like, yes, you are passionate about a lot of different things within the education system. That's great. That does not tell us what job we should be. There's a million different jobs within a school system. There's, there probably is hundreds of jobs just within the administration building or the administration level. And then you could get into the school level, and then there are another couple dozen jobs, right? So it's like we need to get clearer in order to know not only what position we need to have, right? In order to know what position we need to have, what role title you should have, we have to know what kind of impact you actually want to make, right? You see how getting clearer allows you to figure out where your passion actually is aiding you, right? Because without the specificity, sometimes the passion can feel like a burden, right? And that's what we don't want, right? I am anti, kill yourself for a cause. I don't feel like God called us to be martyrs. And many times, unless God has told you that, then that's cool. Like, follow his lead, ignore me. Okay. But I think that we are killing ourselves for no reason. We're living in survival mode when we don't have to, right? But there is a process to being able to be a person who is of impact and fulfilling their assignment and rich and, whatever else matters to you, like time, freedom, and right. Like you can have many of the things that you desire, but the way you're going about it has to change. In short, whatever you are passionate about, make the decision to follow it, right? Because sometimes I hear people's like, your business doesn't, you don't have to be passionate about the thing. If you are an impact driven person, if you are a helper, right? If you are someone who is wired to give, you personally do need to be passionate about the thing that you're doing, job or business. Not everybody needs to do that because they're not, their primary, core value is not impact. But for you, if you are, wired that way, then you actually do need to be doing something that you're passionate about, right? But the key is you need to increase your level of clarity, right, about how you can follow it. Again, without living in survival mode, without burnout, without whatever matters to you, right? Because when you are following your passion in a way that aligns with your standards, you no longer have that inner turmoil, whether it's a soft voice or whether it's loud, right? You're aligned, you're excited, and that is what we want, right? Even when it's hard, you still find yourself in a good place. I want you to know that that is available to you. A life where you are not questioning, does this passion really make me money? Or, anything related to, am I doing what I'm so like, we want to debt all of those doubts, questions, right? Because that is the foundation of building something fantastic.